You're listening to the Ask Drone U podcast. You ask, we answer your drone questions. Whether you're here to turn your passion into profit or you simply fly for fun, we're a community of learners and teachers who aspire to achieve greatness. We are
Drone U.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Ask Drone U. As always, my name is Paul.
And I'm Rob. Thank you for joining us. Really excited to be with you. We are just grateful that you're spending a few minutes of your day with us, and we're going to jump in and hopefully give you some useful information.
Yes. Also want to say thank you to a couple people who have emailed in saying that in 2019, 2020, they stopped listening to the show because Paul, was a little abrasive and it was sometimes hard to listen to. And these same emails and comments have said that they appreciate my recent tact. And I just want to say I really appreciate that. I've definitely had to work on myself and will have to continue working on myself. But I really appreciate those comments, words of affirmation. It really means a lot to me. So thank you very much for those people who have noticed these changes. Yeah, it's phenomenal. So getting into today's question. Before we play today's question, two things. Number one is today's question comes in from a Drone U member, Drone U student, who has also been a part of the coaching calls. He's been a part for a couple months now. We had a coaching call last Thursday. And last Thursday, he told me that he actually had acquired his first construction client because of things that we had gone over in the previous coaching call. And I do have to remember to ship him a landing pad because I said I would do that. So I need to ship him that landing pad today. But he actually left a review for Drone U on Google, and Rob is going to read that to us, and then we'll play his question, which is relevant to all of this regarding the real data-driven details of how drones impact revenue, cost savings, and safety for construction. Interrupting this podcast for an important commercial break and message. That's right, we're gonna have one more mapping class. We just have had so much interest this year in the mapping class. A lot of our students are having success and they're telling their friends about it. So we're deciding to do one more mapping class. The bonus is we're actually gonna be doing a cell tower inspection course plus mapping class combined. You can also do flight mastery if you have not completed that previously and get all of this for one bundle. It's gonna be the first week of December. I believe it's December 2nd through 6th, if that's correct. Monday through Friday. Monday, flight mastery. Tuesday and Wednesday, cell tower with our good friend and new lead instructor, Mr. Brandon Hess, and then mapping with myself and Brandon for Thursday and Friday. Because cell tower is mostly outside anyway, we're gonna mix in the acquisition day with our cell tower class, so that way we can fit everything in 1 week. Look, if you're interested in attending this class, I've got 2 seats left, because originally this was for an enterprise client, but we've got a couple of seats that we can fill. Just email rob@thedroneu if you're interested. All of the normal mapping material that we go over in the mapping sales page is still relevant here today. We typically, though, have been getting through about 12 to 15 exercises depending on just the student's technical capacity and whatnot. So you're gonna go through a lot more data than you normally would. If you wanna join us here in lovely Loveland, Colorado, just email us, rob@thedroneu.com. All right, back to the show.
All right, here we go. I'll try to read fast. I've been on a journey. This is from Johnny, the asker of our question today. I've been on a journey trying to turn drones into a real source of income, and trust me, I've seen the worst of what's out there. I tried course after course, each one promising sky-high salaries and all these job leads, but every time, it was the same story. Buy the course, and instead of getting real training or job connections, you get hit with an overload of useless info. No guidance on how to land clients, no insight into which industries actually want to hire, and definitely no clear way to show your value to a company, just a mess of information that left me with ... nothing. These drone gurus, quote, quote, out there are what I'd call pure information peddlers. They just stack up the content to look impressive, give you nothing actionable, and charge a premium for it. And it's getting worse everywhere you look. A new one's popping up, all claiming they're the ultimate path to your dream job. I should say, drone dream job. But then I found Drone U, and that changed everything. This place isn't like those fly-by-night courses. These guys are actual pilots. That's true. Out there doing real jobs. That's true. Not just throwing around buzzwords. They're bringing back real-world knowledge. They know the industry's needs, and they've got their finger on the pulse of what clients are looking for. It's hands-on, practical, and totally focused on making sure we are job ready. They care about us actually finding work, not just about filling up a classroom. And the best part, after 3 months, I'm already landing jobs. It's thanks to the kind of training that covers both the technical side and the real world know-how. They teach you the skills, yes, but they are just as serious about getting us hired. I wouldn't be shocked if they start subcontracting pilots from their own alumni because the training is that solid. Bottom line, this is the best investment I've made in education. Finally, a course that actually delivers. Thank you, Johnny. You kind of just encapsulate what drives us every single day. And the opportunity to help gents and ladies like yourself have this kind of success and progress.
Well, and he's right about hiring alumni from within,
Yeah.
because we did the experience training and White's Construction hired like literally there was only 2 students that weren't a part of White's, and one of them got hired by White's. So
Yeah, it's what are we doing here if we're not helping you get hired and actually be successful financially in your businesses? Then I don't know, you might as well go write a book. I don't know. It just,
and I
that's
think
why we're here.
It's important to tell these stories and reviews that are getting put out there, because it's really disheartening for us when other people are easier to find online, when other people are spending tens of thousands of dollars on Google for Part 107 training, yet they can't fly drones themselves. You know, they're doing all these news shows that talk about and have their finger on the pulse, but they ultimately have no experience to truly understand the impact, long-term, short-term, of different news, what's really newsworthy, what's not. And sometimes that can really kind of dampen our spirits here at Drone U, because we're so focused on doing it right. We're so focused on teaching from experience. And I'm going to get off this high horse right now, but I'm just very grateful for this review, because it really means the world to me, because we try to go above and beyond everyone else to ensure that the information is accurate, precise, and significant for our students. I mean, it's crazy when you think you can take a class here at Drone U online, $57 a month to have access to membership, which is going away. You can get an annual plan for this Black Friday, but after that, no more monthly membership. Or you can do the in-person class for $2,000, and people are offering the same information without the personal hands-on experience, without the extra exercises, without the real world knowledge, at universities for, $20, $30, $40, $50,000, and it's just because it has a name of a big university. But I think big universities are going to have less and less impact over the course of the century, to be honest with you, especially with the evolution of AI.
It's already happening.
Yeah,
in a big way.
I agree. So,
yeah.
I mean, Lisa and I were watching a show this weekend, and the mom was advocating for her daughter to not go to college. She thought it was a gargantuan waste of money, that she could get into a job, have a couple of different things to figure out what she wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
And the girl was like, well, I just want to have fun at college. She's like, take a gap year. I don't care. But then get into it. I mean, your son, Bear, getting into welding and whatnot, he's the perfect example.
So we have 5 kids, and we thought we would have 5 kids that end up doing the whole college thing, right? And then just things progressed as they were growing up and the world was changing. Our son, oldest, went to the Marine Corps.
Mm-hmm.
He's getting a degree through that process, but that was not his primary goal. Our daughter, the next one, she took 2 years to figure out what the heck does she want to do? Who does she want to be? She figured it out. So now she's kind of doing college at the same time as working in the field she wants to be in. That field requires a degree, but she was able to figure that out. And ultimately, I think, and then Bear, welding,
Mm-hmm.
the trades, man. And you could argue that the drone space probably falls under the category of the trades.
Well, I was just thinking about this too, because like with construction, you can go to a school to do construction management and get out of school making 60 to 80, or you can, utilize robotics in construction, which there are practically no college degrees on that, and make double the first year. So, I mean, this is just another example that, universities are kind of behind the ball here. And especially when you can't hire university professors that have real world experience in emerging robotics, how much value can you really provide, you know?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think we've all learned, those of us that have been around a while, even those of us that do have college degrees, which is a lot of us, we learned that we didn't figure anything out until we were in the market actually doing the job. I mean, college was what it was. We needed it. I needed it to do what I started out my career doing. And so some people are still going to fall into that category.
And I think David Sachs says it well, too. He's like, college is so that you can prove that you could do one thing for 4 years.
Yeah. And I love Sachs. That is an oversimplification, but that's okay.
I love it.
No. I love it as well. But again, it's an oversimplification. But I think from the drone use standpoint, and I hope that this review and even the question from Johnny and the answer that's pending says what I would kind of like our tagline to be, which it probably will never be, but is that here at Drone U, we teach people to do bleep, right?
Yeah.
We want to teach you how to do the stuff you need to do to be successful.
Well, I think it should be, we teach people how to fly confidently in and then blank. Because it could be like, this could be a commercial where it's like an old Google commercial where it's like construction, engineering, architecture. You know, like inspections, it's like communications, utilities.
What is it called? And maybe even in the form of a GIF where it's popping each one of those in there.
Yeah, like a roller wheel. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and that's actually on our wall. That's basically what our mission is. Not stated exactly that way, but that's basically it. I just like we teach people to do blank because it's short, sweet. And that's what we're here for.
100%. And this leads us into the question, which we're about to play, which we should just play because we're already working on case studies to provide further information to make it easier to and more convenient to disseminate this information. There's a lot of stuff out there answering this question, at least when you search, drones in construction or drones value in construction, but you just get a lot of vague crap. And so we have some very specific stuff to share with you today. Let's play that question. Sorry for taking so long.
Drone use student here, and I just want to give you a huge thank you for this podcast. It's actually one of my favorite things to listen to, and I also want to give you a thank you for how much time and quality you've put into our drone university. I'm learning so much there, and I'm just excited I have a place to go to do all that. My question today is I just want to get to the meat and potatoes. I know we're a technical community, but I want to keep it simple and just answer the questions that investors, shareholders, builders, or investment company people would be interested in if I were trying to pitch them on the idea of starting their own drone program, or even incorporate drones into their construction company. And so those questions are, if you could give me 5 different industries in which the drones save the investor or construction company money, save them time, reduce risk, how does it enhance the safety and the safety of others on the job? How will it attract new customer acquisitions? How does it give them the edge in the market over their competitors? And a comparison of the way things were done prior to adding a drone to the company. So I would love to see how this is how it was done, and now this is how it is done. And these are the benefits of why you probably would want to do it this way with a drone. I feel like in our industry, so many people are just so obsessed with how many gigabytes and how many laser beams that it shoots out, and they forget the easy, simple facts of what most investors want to know. Show me the money.
Johnny, man, I love your energy. Yeah. Bottom line is you're going to be successful no matter what you choose to do. That's clear. But these are some good questions. And how do you want to approach this? I know you kind of had a plan of how to go through this, and I want to let that roll.
Yeah, no, I think it's smart. I just think he goes, show me the money. And this is like the first thing the first thing that comes to mind. It's just so apropos. Anyway. Oh, man. All right. Let's show him the money. By the way, grateful for this question. Grateful for you, Johnny. Glad the coaching calls are working for you to get more business and that we have the right information to provide you during coaching calls. And kind of just totally derailed Rob. I'm sorry, but the money song was just
No.
too
You
good.
actually didn't derail me because I was turning it over to you because, again, I know you've thought this through and you had a plan for how you wanted to approach this question or the series of questions.
Yeah. And so let's hit the first thing. You know, he mentioned about the different industries where drones can save investment companies, reporting companies, construction companies. Where is it saving money? Dusty Robotics. Dusty Robotics actually makes ground-based robots. And they have done one of the most comprehensive studies about how robots in general, or robotics in general, are having an impact on the construction industry. And frankly, this is probably the most detailed and significant report that I have ever seen come out. And it essentially showcases how any type of robot in construction will create a 9% reduction in the cost of errors and rework, or EOR, and will have a 10% increase in revenue, simply because of two things. One is poor collaboration, which causes miscommunications, reworks, and change orders. So it significantly reduces time. Now, one of the greatest things, whenever we talk about drones in construction, one of the greatest things, Rob, we were talking about this pre-show, is just how important it is that drones essentially are the ultimate tracking and auditing tool for construction as a whole. I mean,
Yeah, we were talking about how, because one of the things that we wanted to focus on in terms of your overall question, Johnny, was how was it done prior versus how is it done now with the ability to use drones and robotics, right?
Yes.
I think actually the Dusty Robotics example is a perfect answer to that question. But in terms of auditing materials and so forth, I think there were a lot of cases. In fact, you have a story that you tell where a lot of money was saved because of drones, where there was really no solid mechanism to do that unless you are there when X materials are being delivered and you're measuring and you know how to do that efficiently and you know how to, like, you can weigh the dirt or whatever it is, or you're counting the 2x4s. But now with drones, talk about a way it's being done now that it wasn't before. It's actually measuring with mapping effectively.
Yeah, so what we're talking about is auditing materials here, whether you're getting aggregates, whether you're getting dirt, whether you're getting landscape materials, whatever it is. You know, and I gotta say I have two stories here, because I have used drones to accurately predict all the landscaping material that I would need to landscape my entire backyard, and I was within a 2% margin of being correct. It made my life so much easier. To be able to measure how much.
I remember those pictures and those orthos.
Yeah, it worked. I only used Pix4D React for that too. But yeah, the specific story Rob's talking about is auditing materials and aggregates from a company that was Bradbury Stam down in Albuquerque. And Bradbury Stam had actually essentially paid for the equivalent of, I think it was like 20,000 cubic yards of this aggregate material to be delivered to essentially fill and level a site. And as they were filling and leveling the site, they realized that, wait a minute, it seems like they may not have enough material to actually level the site to what they had ordered. And they said, you know, the hard part for us is auditing these materials is significantly difficult because it takes so much time by hand to volumetrically measure how much material, and the measurements aren't that accurate. And I was like, well, give me 30 minutes and I can, you know, map it in a couple hours. I'll have your volumes. Sure enough, they were short. I think it was like 30. I don't remember the exact amount, but I remember the exact amount that it was worth in dollars, which was $3,500 difference in what they had paid for versus what they had delivered. And long story short, they went to the quarry and they said, wait a minute, we're short on this material and we can prove it because we have aerial data to showcase volumetrically you did not deliver as much as we paid for. Sure enough, the truck driver had admitted to us when they were delivering more material that, yeah, they had been skimming off the top of every single truck. So they had delivered the right number of trucks because essentially the contractor knew, if I order this much material, this is how many trucks it should be. So he was counting the trucks, but they were skimming off the top of every single truck.
I forgot that point. That's just wrong.
So
anyways,
but think about it. The drone just provided the mechanism of auditing and tracking, right?
In a very quick and efficient manner.
Exactly. Yes. So it provided, this matters too when you think about what is the ultimate value of drones in construction. And with tracking, monitoring, auditing, the ultimate value is keeping the project on time. Any singular day that a project goes over time, you're talking about a regulatory fee or fine. This is very standard now across the US. So they now have to pay the government because they're late. Okay. That's one. Two, you have the increase of labor costs. Three, you have the increase of all the rentals that are out there, all the machinery, all the tools, anything that they're paying extra for is now going to be one day on top of that. So when someone says, well, what is the value of a drone to my construction site? Well, if I keep your project on time for just one day, what's the regulatory fine? What's the labor charges? I mean, you could go from $10,000 to $1 million really quick, just dependent on the size of the scope of the project.
Yeah, and one other point I want to add to that is he had mentioned the issue of reducing risk, enhancing safety, and in terms of a monetary effect on that, I cannot, with data or conversations specifically, speak to this, but I've got to imagine conversations could be had with your insurance providers or with the construction company's insurance providers to say, we're no longer putting people up on this kind of scaffolding for this purpose. We're using drones. We're no longer climbing these towers. Those kinds of conversations, we're using drones. The risk to you is a lot less. Insurance companies are kind of like turning around a battleship. It's not going to happen overnight, but these kinds of conversations can happen and reduce insurance costs over time.
Oh, 100%. That's actually very good because that's a really powerful point. You mentioned something, so I want to hit this really quick because we got to get back to Dusty Robotics and their data, but you mentioned something about safety overall, and we actually have a specific story here that I want to go over really quick. This actually came in from a friend at a different company. That said, I'm going to read it, but I think it's really important to say, if you're ever, going to a construction company to try to get business, which is, we laid out a strategy this last call to do exactly that, a very specific strategy. If you go to a construction company and they're like, well, where am I going to pay for this? Ultimately, they're trying to put the problem on you and you need a specific answer to hit back. And, you want to ask calibrated questions. You could say, well, how do you expect me to come up with that when you're supposed to know your budget? That's just going to cause oppositional defiance, right? So one of the best answers of, well, how am I going to afford to pay you as a drone pilot is, well, sir, that's actually a very good question. Ultimately, you're going to know your budget better than anyone. But I think where we see a lot of construction companies covering these costs is in their safety budget, because in the safety budget, there's always room for growth. There's always room to pay for these types of things. And typically, with what my fees will be from $500 to $1,000 a week, that's going to be essentially covered. Now, in this last coaching call as well, we gave away a PDF brochure, a templated brochure that you could put into Canva and change everything. I don't know. I thought I sent it to you.
You did.
And so that's another value of coming to these coaching calls free to members, is that you can actually gain marketing assets and whatnot. So long story short is, they gave them 3 different price points and packages to fit within that $500,000 range that ultimately will fit into the safety budget. Here's a great story, by the way. This is a real world story, not from us, but it's a good one. One large food and beverage company had an OSHA mandate to review the roofs for over its 100 facilities due to safety risks. More specifically, if a roof work area had fell within 15 feet of an edge or a drop-off area, the company had to make sure that the safety rails were installed. The company then had to provide proof back to OSHA that the safety requirements had been met. To accomplish this, drones were flown instead of sending inspectors. Not only did the drone derive the 3D imagery to provide the ability to inspect if proper railing existed, but the images were also provided to the contractors hired to install any missing railings for their planning purposes. Finally, the drone imagery was used as proof back to OSHA that their facility roofs all had the proper safety rails installed. So when he asked this question, okay, how are we saving time? How are we saving money? Well, we've already talked about saving money on rework, change orders, and errors, okay? We've already talked about saving time for auditing materials, deliveries, aggregates, etc. When we're talking about reducing risk, one person falling off of a building can be up to $8 million in costs alone. The insurance premiums are going to go up for that company. And for some companies, that can actually be debilitating on $100 to $500 million level. I hate to name names here, but a perfect example of that is what happened with McCarthy Construction in New Mexico. It's why they don't do that many projects in New Mexico. But if you remember back in around the time that I met you, there was a huge story about scaffolding falling down. And long story short is McCarthy was caught in between that and some government expenditure issues. There was some senator or congressman that was don't listen to me on the details of the story because it's totally wrong. But long story short is there was some political issue combined with safety issue that's why they don't do business in New Mexico anymore.
Well, and that's a really interesting point because if an accident of any significant nature occurs, the media, potentially politicians, this particular company is likely to find themselves in the position of being used as an example, which is going to exacerbate any issues that they're already trying to mitigate. And so in most cases, having used a drone, if it's a possibility, would have eliminated that risk or certainly mitigated it significantly.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, if you even think about the scenario that you just painted, if you have drone data to market your case in the court of public opinion, right? If you have digital data that you can say, look, we are being accused of X, and you do a press release or you do a PR campaign or you have a press meeting, a press briefing, and you say, look, they are saying that we did not do X. But if you look at the digital data of the report of the eye in the sky, it showcases something very different, right? You instantly impact the consequences of that court case because ultimately, I know that in jury processions, they're always going to be like, do you watch the news? Do you do this? Do you do that? These questions are outdated, right? Do you watch the news? No. But I watched Joe Rogan and I heard all about this, So I have a jury. I've been called to be a juror coming up here this month. And I'm trying to feel like, how much do I want to get in this? How much do I want to mess with the attorneys? Because they always ask such calibrated questions. And I want to answer every single question with a calibrated question just to fuck with them. Because the last time I was a juror was in DC and it was a fiasco. It was a lot of fun. So
you do you. That's all I'll say to that. In terms of continuing along this path of this question, I think there's some other things that are happening. And so maybe you can talk a little bit about BIM in construction.
Yeah.
VDC in construction. And I think that a drone pilot who understands these concepts, when you talk about wanting to go to a foreman or somebody on the job site, letting them know what you're able to help them with and how you're able to bring value, understanding those concepts could really be pertinent.
Oh, it could be astronomically valuable. I mean, if you think about it too, just mapping with the astronomical detail. Thanks, Brandon.
Oh, nice.
Anyway.
Oh, that's right. That was Brandon, Mr. Hess. Atta baby.
Well, okay. So this actually, Johnny Duncan, who asked this question on the show, asked the question and talked about this last week with the coaching calls about construction vernacular. So it's funny because I said in the coaching calls, if you ever go to a construction company, don't call it BIM, call it VDC, which is virtual design and construction. It's like the new BIM, but essentially it allows construction companies, architectural companies, large format construction companies to plan, design, and create a digital twin. It's like the ultimate methodology of making sure that your AC lines, which run near your electrical lines, aren't too close or make, too many right-handed turns to reduce efficiency. And drones are the ultimate methodology of creating exterior 3D models for that VDC, and also to match what the VDC plans call for versus what has been done. I mean, Joshua Marriott had an example of in Florida.
If you haven't listened to that show, listen to that show.
Yeah, I mean, he had a very specific example of in Florida of how drones saved his booty.
Yeah.
And the thing is too is that you're working in a world of construction where employee retention is very low. It's like 50% of the workforce changes hands every 2 years. And so when you have these digital models, think of them as digital files. Just think of them as the filing cabinet, but every file is an ortho, or every file is a point cloud, or every file is a 3D model. When you have these digital assets every single week, and now you have to replace a construction manager, you have to replace a project manager, a project engineer. It's so much easier to keep the project moving forward when you have all these records and data. It's just, the efficiency factor alone is worth it. I mean, I could sit here all day and tell stories from real construction sites where, people ask me, well, what's the value of drones in a construction site? And it's like, well, if it's $100 million construction site, it could be $10 million, I mean, it's not a finite number, because as most things in science, it depends. If you save 1 day in regulatory fines, that's $100,000. The labor costs $100,000. Mm-hmm. Them paying you $1,000 a week is nothing in how much money you can save them in liability and change orders, increasing revenue 10%. I mean, we're talking millions of dollars.
Yeah. And construction companies, as we're learning and understanding, are beginning to see the value of adding this kind of element to the budget up front. So they're budgeting for drone pilots, drone work, whether it's internally done, meaning pilots that are employed by the construction company, or contracting it out. They're budgeting that stuff into the jobs now.
They are.
Yeah. And so when you think about the VDC and the virtual design and construction world, it is such a powerful phenomenon. It's been around forever, obviously, right? It's been something, but drones have added a whole new dimension.
Because it's, again, the auditing and the tracking, but also, go ahead. Sorry.
No, please interject. But it's also a quick way, relatively, to update those models. Boom, boom, boom. And that includes the internal side of things.
Well, and if you think about it, it's not just for internal communications, internal reporting, reducing job site visits, which is a whole cost benefit analysis in itself. You're also talking about customer acquisition, which is one of his questions about how does this attract customer acquisitions? And I mean, we have been a part of jobs, and actually have been asked to do one coming up here this month, of creating 3D models of existing sites to change them. This is one of the biggest ways, the biggest moneymakers for drone pilots is 3D modeling. And I don't mean using a Mini 4 Pro like some people say on YouTube. That's out of the question, not going to work, not enough detail. Okay. But creating 3D models of existing buildings. The U.S. government has now said if you want to maintain your energy efficiency status and your certifications, you have to update your buildings to have a higher thermal, thermal barrier. And so now you have to create these 3D models of these buildings to then have new construction on these buildings to essentially dictate further construction. So when we talk about VDC, you're not just helping attract existing clients, but you're also attracting new clients, and you are also telling the story.
You're telling the story, which is powerful on so many levels, including existing, and you alluded to this, Johnny, existing investors. And if you can create a way for, say, the construction manager for a given project, typically a project, whether it's 100 million, 10 million, there's going to be either a manager or a group, a team of management, depending on the size, making their life easier by providing this information, these models, this data that they can push to investors or bosses that are above them, and not have to worry about it because you're giving them the pamphlet, so to speak, on an ongoing basis. That's powerful.
Well, and just think too about the social media aspect of it.
Absolutely.
You with a 3D model, and now you can do this in drone deploy, but you can't import and export video animations in drone deploy, which kind of takes half of the real value of the video animation tool out. But in Pix4D, with the video animation tool, if you create a 3D model of a site every single week or every month, whatever, and then you create a video animation, you can now stack those video animations in a timeline in Final Cut Pro or Premiere Pro, and you can literally showcase a hyperlapse of the actual progression of that site over time. And the real value is that you can create any perspective. A hyperlapse from a consumer drone, it's one perspective and you can never change that perspective, right? But when you are creating video animations from 3D models, you can select whatever perspective that you want. And then you can turn that into a hyperlapse to attract new customers, but to also tell the story on social media, to also report to the investors. I mean, investors with that level of communication are probably going to want to invest again because they can really keep the finger on the pulse. I mean,
absolutely. And as the provider of that, you're bringing tremendous value. Whoever the company is that those investors invested in, they're going to probably get first dibs on that investor's money in the future. Tremendous value. We haven't talked much about like even just something like an Avata 2 doing flythroughs on a regular basis.
Oh gosh, I know this really could be like 3 or 4 shows if we're being honest.
But that's another, when you ask about what can we go to the construction company with in terms of value, those, because you could walk around and take pictures, but it's not going to come to life in the same way that a fly-through is, because you can pause the video, look around.
Well, if you remember,
there's so many things you can do.
I worked on a construction site in Albuquerque off of Academy and almost Tramway. And if you remember back in the day, I was asked to fly a Phantom inside of that. It was the CNM campus they were building. And I was asked to fly up and actually take a video along to make sure that this piping and finish work had been done correctly. And nowadays you can fly an Avata 2 and it's much safer, much easier, etc. And in the coaching call, the third package was to actually include the fly-through videos because that takes real skill. And instead of charging $1,000 a week, you're charging $2,500, $3,000 a week. You take the value up because now it's not just tracking. It's not just auditing. It's not just keeping a timeline on track, but now you're telling the story. Now you have social media. It's not just inspecting interior work that's being done, ensuring the VDC models and the digital twins are being built out the way that they are represented on paper. It's now telling that story on social media. It's now telling that story on LinkedIn. It's now telling that story in PR releases because honestly, you know, the society has a vested interest in a lot of these construction projects that are funded by taxpayer dollars. And when the city can showcase, Loveland does this all the time. Hey, this is the progress that we're making on the 4th Street build out. This is what we're showing. This is what the digital twin is going to look like. That has people buy in. So when they shut down traffic for a month on 4th Street and people are like, why are we doing this? Because we're going to create a really beautiful space to elevate the businesses in this community and create a truly enjoyable space for our families to enjoy. This is a short-term pain for a long-term gain. And honestly, when you have that buy-in and you tell that story, again, you're just increasing the already astronomical value of the, there you go,
now
Brandon.
You can't help yourself.
Number 2.
He's going to start charging us per.
Yeah, I know. Now you just start increasing the value of the story, which is just huge. It's enormous. So
yeah, you're never going to get all of the detractors in a situation like that. There's going to be people that just don't get the big picture, but you are going to be able to get a bunch of people that would not perhaps otherwise have caught the vision to catch the vision and become proponents instead of detractors. And man, just any of that noise that can be reduced, say for a local government, they're going to appreciate that.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Anyway, it just makes me think that the value is so large, it's hard to put into finite terms. But you have to put it in finite terms at some point. Dusty Robotics did it, put it in finite dollarized terms. And I mean, you can run projection models to give to contractors to say, if your regulatory fine is $10,000 and your labor is this per day, and I keep you on track just one day, this is my value over the life of the project. And ultimately, you know, one of the questions that he asked was, how does this change how we have done things in the past versus how we're done now? And you brought up a really good point. You're like, well, this auditing, monitoring, and tracking wasn't really even able to be done in the past.
Certainly not to the extent it can be done now.
I mean, problems just weren't solved. You just had repeat change orders, repeat errors and omissions. This is why errors and omissions insurance exists in certain industries. I mean, now we have a methodology of creating a timeline, an aerial timeline, a 3D timeline that isn't just a technical aspect of solving problems, but is also a creative aspect of showcasing that story, you know, to the investors, to the public, to social media. So
absolutely.
I mean,
you know what, just talking about this show has gotten me excited.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's just so much possibility, so much potential. And yeah, a lot of the larger construction companies are doing this in-house now, this kind of stuff. But there might be opportunities there, by the way, to go fly for these companies. But there's a lot of probably 50 million and down companies that are not doing it internally.
I agree. And this goes back to what we were talking about with the changes of the upcoming mapping class. And I don't want to say them on the show because our competitors...
We're still figuring it out too.
Yeah, but our competitors who are not really competitors copy us all the time. So I want to get this out before we talk about it. But it just makes you think about how to change the mapping class to be more specific to the problems and solutions that are out there that exist. So, that being said, I just want to say, Johnny Duncan, I really appreciate you from the bottom of my heart. I really appreciate these questions. Keep them coming in. Everyone else, this industry evolves faster than we can put questions out. I know we've already gone through almost 2,000 questions in the last 11 years, and I can't say thank you enough. And I also can't say thank you enough to everyone who has given me the trust and space to grow and to evolve and to, I've made mistakes and I've had an opportunity to fix those mistakes and I've taken those opportunities and I appreciate it. I appreciate those who have stuck through it with us, that have believed that, okay, you might have screwed up, but I believe you can make changes. And that means you too, Rob. I appreciate you and I appreciate the listeners out there. We will continue to drive value for you. We will continue to painstakingly work on ourselves to make sure that you are getting the best information in the most convenient methodology so that you retain that information and make money and do what you love, because ultimately when you do what you love, it's a lot easier to go to work every day.
Hear, hear.
So anyway.
Hear, hear.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for us today. Before we go, one last mapping class. I forgot to bring this up before the question. One last mapping class. It is now scheduled for the first week of December. It's actually a mapping class jointly with the cell tower inspection course. So it's Flight Mastery 1 day, 2 days of cell tower inspection, 2 days of mapping. You can join us. It is not on the website. You have to email Rob direct, rob@thedroneu.com.
But it is the first week of December. It
is the first week of December. There are only 2 seats remaining. This is kind of like a joint last minute enterprise client desire. We're fulfilling that desire, but we can ultimately fit 2 to 4 more people in that class. I really think only maybe 2, but we'll see how it pans out. I also want to say, if you are considering attending this class, yes, you are going to need a desktop computer, not a desktop, a laptop computer that runs Windows. You will not be able to do this stuff on your Mac. That's going to change next year. You will also need a drone. We are no longer doing drone rentals. We might rent out a Phantom, but it's going to be $100 a day. And I would prefer not to rent them out. So that being said, no more drone rentals. And yes, you're hearing it from me. Bring a mouse, okay? Gosh, we send out so many damn videos of like how to be prepared for class. And someone told me last class, they're like, you did not tell me to bring a mouse. I'm like, bullshit. Anyway, look, I want to help you guys learn as much as I can, but you got to help yourself too in some cases. So that being said, if you want to join us for this class, it will be a special rate as well. Email rob@thedroneu if you want to join us in Loveland, Colorado, HQ, for one last mapping and cell tower class. But that's going to do it for us today, as we have a meeting to go to.
I'm Rob.
I'm Paul. And if you have a question, ask droneu.com.